Hey there all you gals and gents, this is Axolotl Aristotle here today to bring you the last Tales of Aria Budget Blitz Precon Upgrade Guide. So today I'm going to look over the Lexi Precon Blitz deck, see what it does, what it could do better, and what we're going to add to it. So to start off with, let's go through the Precon. So let's start off by reading what our hero does. Lexi is an Elemental Ranger hero, and her elements she can use are Ice and Lightning. Her ability is a once per turn action. Turn a face down card in your arsenal face up. If it's a lightning card, your next attack this turn gains Go Again. If it's an ice card, create a frostbite token under target hero's control, Go Again. So for the upgraded deck we're going to focus more on the ice side. We're going to manage the tempo of the game. We're going to make their spells and abilities harder to cast, and we're going to go for a tall approach instead of a go wide, so giving our attack Go Again doesn't really do anything for us. The first card we have is Blizzard Bolt. It is a 1-drop Elemental Ranger action attack card. It has Ice Fusion. If Blizzard Bolt was fused, whenever an attack deals damage to a hero this turn, create a Frostbite token under their control. So we're going to keep this. The Precon deck focuses mainly on the lightning side, whereas our upgrade deck is going to focus more on the ice side. Next up we have one copy of Bolt and Shot. It is a 0-drop Ranger action arrow attack card. It reads when Bolt and Shot's damage is greater than its base damage, it has Go Again, and if this hits, reload. Now, we're going to cut this card. It is, in my opinion, a pretty good card. It's 0-drop, it has Go Again, it's reload, but as I just said, our deck is looking to go tall and not go wide. The Precon deck has 4 copies of Buzzbolt, 2 red, 2 yellow. It is a 1-drop Elemental Ranger action arrow attack card. It has Lightning Fusion, so we already don't really want it. And if it was fused, whenever an attack hits a hero this turn, it deals 1 damage to them. So it's an okay card. It kind of reminds me of Ball Lightning, except it's really worse because 1, it needs to be fused, 2, it doesn't have Go Again, and 3, it costs 1 mana. Next up we have Dazzling Crescendo. It is a 0-drop Elemental Ranger action arrow attack card. It reads Lightning Fusion. If Dazzling Crescendo is fused, it gains Go Again. So we're going to cut this card. It really wants to go for the go wide strategy, which is why it has Go Again and costs 0, but that's not what the upgrade deck is going to do. Precon also comes with 4 copies of Electrify, 2 blue and 2 red. It is a 1-drop lightning action card that reads the next time an attack action card hits a hero this turn, it deals 3 damage to them. If it was played from Arsenal, draw a card, Go Again. I think Electrify is an okay card, especially if you want to proc lightning action, but since we don't really want to proc lightning action and the upgraded deck will have way better ways to get damage through, we don't really need this card. Next we have 2 copies of Entwined Lightning. It is a 0-drop elemental action attack card. It reads Lightning Fusion. If it was fused, Go Again. So again, this is really for go wide decks, and our deck won't want to do that, so we're going to cut it. We have 4 copies of Frazzle, 2 red and 2 yellow. It is a 1-drop Elemental Ranger action arrow attack card. It reads Lightning Fusion. If it was fused, whenever attack would deal damage this turn, instead it deals that much damage plus 1. So again, this sort of reminds me of Ball Lightning and Buzzbolt, except both Buzzbolt and Frazzle are worse copies of Ball Lightning. It's okay in go wide strategies, but that isn't what we're doing here, so we're just going to get rid of it. Next up we have 4 copies of Heaven's Claws, 2 red, 2 yellow. It is a 1-drop generic lightning action attack card. We're not going to fuse lightning, we want cards with effects, so we're just cutting them. We have 1 copy of Lightning Press, which is a 0-drop lightning instant target attack action card with a cost 1 or less, gains plus 3. We're actually going to keep this in. So in the upgraded deck, we're going to have cards that want to deal damage to proc off other effects, and since we won't be lightning fusing at all, this card will just remain in hand and your opponent will never know it's there, unlike in other decks where you needed to fuse the lightning cards and you have to reveal it. So if they block or use defense reactions, this is just a good card to be like, haha, your efforts were useless, my effects still go through. The deck also comes with 2 copies of Overflex. It is a 1-drop Ranger action. Your next arrow attack this turn gains plus 4 and reload, so you'll literally just put an arrow card from your hand into your arsenal so you can attack with it. There's nothing wrong with this card. It's actually pretty good in Ranger decks. The problem is there are better cards that do damage and reload at the same time, and they cost 0. The deck has 2 copies of Shock Striker. It is a 1-drop lightning action attack card with once per turn instant, pay 2 mana, Shock Striker gains. If Shock Striker hits a hero, deal 1 damage to them. So we're not going to fuse with lightning. We're a tempo deck. We want cards with effects on them, and this just kind of does more damage, so we're not keeping it. We have one copy of Snapshot. It costs 0. It is an Elemental Ranger Action Arrow attack card with Lightning Fusion, so already we don't want it. It reads, if Snapshot was fused, you may activate abilities of bows you control an additional time this turn as though they were an instant. So this is good in the more go wide versions of the deck, but since we're going tall, we don't really want this. We can't fuse it, so we're just cutting it. Next up is one copy of Take Aim. It is a 0-drop Ranger action. The next Ranger attack action card you play this turn gains +3, and it has Reload. So remember what I said about Overflex? Yeah, this is the card we're replacing it with. Finally, for the last of our pitch ones, the deck gives us Weave Lightning, cost 0. It's a lightning action. The next lightning or elemental attack action card you play this turn gains +3. If it's fused, it gains Go Again, Go Again. So again, cards like these are great in the go wide versions of the deck, but that's not what we're going to want to try and do, so we're just going to cut it. Moving on to pitch 2s, we have 2 copies of Chill to the Bone. It is a 0-drop ice action. The next time an ice or elemental attack hits a hero this turn, create 2 frostbite tokens under their control, Go Again. So this card is pretty great. It's an ice action card, so it fuses with other cards. We could use it as a tempo card because it costs 0 and it'll give them frostbite, or we could just use it for mana if we need to pitch it. Next up is Chilling Ice Vein. It is a 1-drop Elemental Ranger Action Arrow attack card. It has Ice Fusion. If Chilling Ice Vein was fused, whenever an attack deals damage to a hero this turn, they discard a card unless they pay 1 resource. So it's an Ice Fusion, and if it connects, they have to either pitch a card or discard a card, and that means that they have less resources to attack with us. It's the first action tempo card that we have, and it's perfect. We're keeping it. The last pitch 2 card the deck provides us with is Pitfall Trap. It is a 0-drop Ranger Defense reaction card. It reads deal 2 damage to the attacking hero unless they pay 1 resource. So on an initial reading, you might think that this is what the deck wants to do. It is making them potentially pay a resource, but they can just opt out of paying that resource and just take the 2 damage. So it really doesn't put them behind. It really doesn't interrupt their strategy. All it really does is probably drain them for 2 life, and that isn't really the biggest deal, so we're going to end up cutting it. Finally, moving on to pitch 3s, we have 2 copies of Amulet of Lightning. It is a 0-drop lightning action item card, so already you know we're probably going to get rid of it. It reads Go Again, destroy Amulet of Lightning, target action card gains Go Again, activate this ability only if you have Lightning Fuse this turn. So we're never going to Lightning Fuse in this deck, so we can't even proc it. It's getting replaced. And the final card from the pre-constructed deck is Winter's Bite. It is a 0-drop, target hero discards a card unless they pay 1 resource, Go Again, ice action. So this card's absolutely wonderful. If you've seen my Ultimate Blitz deck upgrade guide, I was kind of sleeping on this card, I was kind of iffy on it, but after playtesting Lexi for a couple days using this card, I really enjoy it. It's 0 mana, so we can just use it before anything. It's ice, so it can be used as a fusion. And it really helps with the tempo plan, because if we use it, they either discard a card or pitch a card, and that's 1 less resource they can use against us. Alright, real quick before we move on, I'd like to ask if you could like and subscribe if you enjoy what you're seeing, and without further ado, let's go on to the upgraded build. Alright, first things first, we did add 2 more Blizzard Bolts, this time pitch 2. We don't really want to add too many pitch 3 cards in this deck because the higher pitch they have, the lower damage they do, and these cards' effects are dependent on actually dealing damage, and we don't want to just get blown out by our opponent blocking with 1 or 2 good cards. We also added in 2 red Chilling Ice Veins because it just increases the damage and it increases the tempo and the attacks our deck can do. For the first rare card, we added in 2 copies of Cold Wave. It is a 1-drop Elemental Ranger Action Arrow attack card. It reads Ice Fusion. If Cold Wave was fused, cards and activated abilities cost opposing heroes an additional 1 resource this turn. So this card's pretty great. This is more just a I'm going to deal damage card because your opponent can just opt out of not paying their resources or just block with it. It will make your opponent think twice about holding on to defense reaction cards instead of just pitching with them, and that'll help you later on when you're trying to put through damage on cards that actually need to deal damage. Next, we added 4 copies of Hamstring Shot, 2 red, 2 yellow. It costs 1 mana, it's a Ranger Action Arrow attack card, and it reads, if it hits a hero, their first attack during their next turn costs an additional 1 resource to play. So this card's perfect, it has a pretty decent starting attack stat, and it taxes and tempos them if it hits them. It's everything our upgraded deck wants to do. We added in a second copy of Lightning Press. I already explained why we're keeping it, so adding 1 more in should make sense. We added 2 copies of Sleep Dart. It costs 1. It's a Ranger Action Arrow attack card, and it reads, if it hits a hero, they lose all hero card effects and activated abilities until the end of their next turn. So I mean, this card is just absolutely incredible, even if you're only just playing against fellow Tales of Aria Blitz decks, because it stops Lexi from flipping a card over, it stops Oldhim from using his defense reaction, it stops Briar from getting tokens of any kind, and that's just in this block. Every hero wants to do something and activate an ability, and Sleep Dart just kind of prevents them from that, so it's a really good taxing card. Next, we added 1 more red copy of Take Aim and 2 yellow cards. Again, just like Lightning Press, I already said why this card is so good. It's just free reload and damage increase. It's just absolutely wonderful. The next card we added in is 4 copies of Weave Ice, 2 red and 2 yellow. It is a 0-drop ice action card, so it can already fuse your ice fusions. And it reads, the next ice or elemental attack action card you play this turn gains +3 damage. If it's fused, it gains Dominate. That last part is especially important because, as I've said this entire time, our deck is filled with cards that want to hit to proc their abilities to tax your opponent, and giving a card Dominate, which limits your opponent's abilities to defend that attack and block all the damage, is just absolutely perfect. I added in 2 red copies of Winter's Bite. I think it's okay. I think it's good for the budget build. In the non-budget build, I'd probably take out just the red copies. The blue ones are still good. It's just that it pitches for 1. All it really does is fuse and annoy your opponent, and we're really looking to do all of that and pitch. As is tradition in all my budget decks, I like to add in mythics because everyone likes to run those powerful big mythic cards. So we added in 2 copies of Feign Death. It is a 1-cost Ranger instant. It reads, play Feign Death only if you've been dealt damage this turn. The next time you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent it. So this card was already good before. This card was already good before this set, but now with heroes like Briar and Lexi that want to keep going, and especially Briar with all those lightning balls, you can just take the cheapest hit you can and then just prevent them and make them waste all of their Go Again cards. And the reason for this is when you're facing go wide decks that want to attack multiple times and deal a ton of damage by going wide, this just stops them in their tracks because they'll get their measly little 2 or 3 damage off from the first one, and then you play this and they can't do anything for the rest of their turn. Sure, they can play more cards, but it won't really have any effects. It's a good backup card for when you have bad turns, you weren't able to deal damage, or you weren't able to give them a ton of Frostbite tokens or make them discard, and they get to just go all in on you. You can just prevent that atrocity from happening. The second to last unique card we added were 2 copies of Amulet of Ice. It is a 0-drop ice action item, so it could already fuse all your ice cards. It reads, go again, instant destroy Amulet of Ice, target hero discards a card unless they pay 2 resources. Activate this ability only if you have ice fuse this turn. So I absolutely love this card. You can pitch it if you need to. It's good for fusing, and then it's just a safety measure. So you play it and you don't want to proc it when you're already ahead. You don't want to proc it when they're already being taxed, when they already have Frostbite tokens, when they've already discarded a card. You want to proc this when your opponent blocks your huge attack and prevents themselves from being taxed and could go at you the next turn. So even if your attack's been prevented, you'll still be taxing them, and you'll still make it that much harder to actually be dealt damage the next turn. The final unique card we added is also a mythic. It is Frostlock. It is a 1-drop Elemental Ranger Action Arrow attack card. It reads Ice Fusion. Cards and activated abilities cost opposing heroes an additional 1 resource this turn. But the important part is, if it was fused, it gains +1 damage, and if this hits a hero until the end of their next turn, they can't pitch or play cards with base cost 0. Now, this card is minorly annoying at worst in decks that don't really have a lot of cost 0 cards, but in tempo decks, in especially aggro and go wide decks, most of their cards are going to be 0-drop. For example, by looking at our updated deck list right now, half of our cards cost 0, so half of our deck becomes useless the next turn. This card is just absolutely nuts. It's our biggest bomb card. It's our biggest tax card. I would never pitch it away. And finally, just like in all my other videos, we're going to include some non-budget upgrades in case you really like the deck and wanted to upgrade it, or you had some extra funds lying around. So the first card will be Pulse of Volthaven. It is a 0-drop Lightning Ice instant. It reads Legendary, you can only have 1 in your deck. Your next Lightning, Ice, or Elemental attack this turn gains +4. I think it's good. You can use it as fusion material or to ensure that all your special effect attacks get through and do their effect. Next up is Remorseless. It is a 1-drop ranger action arrow attack, and it reads, if Remorseless is put into your arsenal face up, until end of turn it gains, defense reactions can't be played from arsenal to Remorseless's chain link. And if it hits, until the end of their next turn, whenever the opponent tries to play an action card, they lose 1 life. So this card is absolutely insane, especially if you're facing a deck like Briar Go Wide or Chain, because every single card they play is just going to cost them life, and they want to dump their hand onto the board. So this is a 4 to 5 life drain per turn if they didn't defend with anything. It's just perfect. But because it's perfect, it is pretty pricey. The last main deck card you'd want to include would be Seek and Destroy. It's 0-drop, it's a ranger action. It reads, your next arrow attack this turn gains +3, and if it hits a hero at the beginning of their next end phase, they discard all cards in their hand and destroy all cards in their arsenal. Go again. This card is just bonkers. It makes them lose their entire hand. They just skip a turn and go back to you. It's great. Now these next 2 cards are more meta dependent, or if you want to play the deck more control-y. First up is Blizzard. It is a 0-drop ice instant. It reads, target attack loses and can't gain Go again unless the attacking hero pays 2 resources. So this is really good if you're facing a lot of Go Wide decks. It makes them have to pay more resources to attack again, and sometimes they won't even have those resources, so their turn just ends right there. Finally is Channel Lake Frigid. It is a 2-drop ice action aura with Go Again. It reads, cards and activated abilities cost opposing heroes an additional 1 resource per turn. It has Channel Ice and Channel Ice, which is at the beginning of your end phase, put a flow counter on Channel Lake Frigid, then destroy it unless you put an ice card from your pitch zone on the bottom of your deck for each flow counter on it. So this card is to mainly just disrupt your opponent's game plan. It's not going to shut them down permanently, but if they are a Go Wide deck, it's going to make it even harder for them to play. If they're a Go Tall deck, they might still be able to make a play, but it won't be as good. And because you'll have mostly all ice cards in your deck, you'll be able to pay the pitch cost for 1 or 2 turns. This has been the $20 budget Lexi Blitz upgrade guide. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any thoughts on the deck, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear it. If you want to support this channel even more, I also have a Patreon with numerous tiers and rewards, and I'll leave the link down below in the description. Thank you all so much for watching.